What's going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel, and if you guys are new, welcome. As you can see, we're going over a hunter build for Void with you guys, going over the new exotic chest piece that just became re-enabled after being disabled for so long, the Gyrfalcon's chest piece right here. You get bonus damage after being invisible, and finishers while invisible grant allies a reserve overshield. So this chest piece is super nice for getting that extra DPS on some enemies when we become uninvisible, and you can see we compare it a couple different ways to take it into those endgame activities. Now, starting off here with our Night Stalker abilities, aspects, and fragments. For our super, I'm going with Shadow Shot, the Deadfall, so we have that increased range and it lasts longer with that single bolt throwing it out. For me, I'm going Marksman Dodge, so we can become invisible with that because of our aspect. Triple Jump, Snare Bomb, and Vortex Grenade for our grenade. Now for our aspects here, we got Stylish Executioner. Defeating a weakened, suppressed, or volatile target grants invisibility and true sight. That is going to be very important for how we have this build set up for weakening targets, becoming volatile rounds as well, and then we're just going to be invisible out of invis, dealing that extra damage. We get a defeat and then it just rinse and repeats. Now we're also throwing on Vanishing Step, like I said, with 100 mobility and Marksman's Dodge, so we can reload, and every single time we dodge we also go invisible. Now for our fragments and aspects here, we have our grenades weaken our targets, which is important for right here with Stylish Executioner. Every time we defeat one of those weakened targets, we are going to become invisible, so super important for proccing our chest piece and that extra little bit of damage. Right here, finishers grant us invisibility, so it plays very well into the realm of the chest piece as well, because those finishers, while we're invisible, also grant that overshield for allies. So this is an extra way for us to become invisible and grant that extra little secondary perk of the chest piece. Third, right here, we have defeating targets with grenades grant us volatile rounds for our Void weapons, hence why we are running a Void LMG and a Void SMG, so we can create Void Elemental Wells as well as those volatile rounds, again proccing Stylish Executioner, making us invisible every time we defeat enemies with that volatility on them. Last but not least, we have Echo of Remnants, so that Vortex Grenade that we are using right here has that longer duration, allowing us to weaken more enemies as well as get more defeats, which creates weakening and volatile rounds for Stylish Executioner to proc, allowing us to be invisible in a multitude of ways, which is super nice, allowing that chest piece to proc that extra damage after becoming uninvisible very easy and frequently. Now, with all those different ways of going invisible, we're going to go over our armor and weapons that make this possible, with a couple substitutions for taking it into endgame depending on the mods that you throw on. So first off, we're going to have Witherhoard or Arbalist for those anti-barriers for Arbalist, and then we're using Witherhoard for that crazy DPS and add clear potential. Now for me, I'm sticking with the Unforgiven, especially with Repulsor Brace on it. Now, Repulsor Brace is defeating Void debuff targets grants an overshield. So because we're weakening targets and having that volatile rounds, those both count as Void debuffs. So when we get defeats, this weapon will grant us overshield. Super nice. Was able to just get it. That's why I only have 27 defeated, but it is very noticeable when you get those defeats with this weapon. Last but not least, we're throwing on our Commemoration with Reconstruction for those Void defeats as well with the volatility rounds, and we're going to throw on Overload LMG if we need it for that endgame activity, and this works wonders. Now moving on to our armor pieces over here, you can see we have 100 mobility to dodge and get that invisibility to proc very often in about that 10-second range. Now for this, you can see I do have a Festival of the Lost mask on, but it is a Juicer Magooser at 106 overall stats with Powerful Friends on this bad boy and hands on that gain us super energy on our melee defeats. Now right here on our arms, we have bolstering detonation, so we get class ability energy when we cause damage with our grenade. Super important to get our dodge back even faster because that grenade has that increased duration, and we're weakening enemies, giving us volatile rounds as well. Then like I said, I have overload rounds on for our machine guns, taking that into endgame. And then Phantom Might, which is also super important because Phantom Might also procs on top of the damage buff that we get from our exotic chest piece. So we're doing an amplitude of damage on enemies just by becoming uninvisible and picking up a void elemental well with Phantom Might. Now on this chest piece that is finally enabled after all of that time being disabled, we have See and Feel Me as this exotic perk. So your weapons gain bonus damage briefly after you emerge from being invisible. While you are invisible and defeat combatants with finishers, you and nearby allies gain a reserve of overshield and improved class regen, which is super important for our dodge, once again proccing that invisibility. These reserve overshields can be deployed using a class ability. So we get that overshield to stack up on us, and then as soon as we dodge again, we get that overshield to get on our guardian and stack up our health. So it's a super nice chest piece for survivability, as well as if we do those finishers, we give it to our allies as well. Now for our mods that we have on, Reaping Wellmaker. So after activating your class ability, your next weapon final blow spawns a void elemental well. So this is super nice, again, for getting that damage to proc for Font of Might, as well as we're getting our dodge back super fast anyways and becoming invisible. So this just helps a lot for those void elemental wells. We're going to use grenade launcher reserves, or we can throw on linear reserves if we're using Arbalist instead of Witherhoard, but I do like Witherhoard for the most part unless I need it for anti-barriers, but usually somebody else can pick up that champion instead of us. Then I got thermo shock plating so we can stay alive a little bit better from that arc and solar damage incoming in the endgame activities. Moving on to our boots, we got machine gun scavenger for our LMG, and then submachine gun holster. When we put away this repulsor's brace Unforgiven, it will just reload after a certain amount of time, almost like auto-loading holster on weapons. Now we do have elemental armaments as well, so final blows with weapons that match our subclass type have a chance to create elemental wells of that same type. So both our commemoration and unforgiving defeats will help us proc void elemental wells, which we pick up to proc Font of Might, giving us more damage for both of these weapons. So it is very nice to just lay into champions after becoming uninvisible and picking up a void elemental well with commemoration, and you just absolutely blow it off the face of the earth. Now, last but not least, right here on our class item, we got Perpetration. So, reduce class ability when using your class ability. We have 2 of those on, so every time we dodge, our class ability comes back even faster. Hence, we're just invisible all the time, allowing us to proc our chest piece extra damage very, very consistently and all the time easily. Now we have elemental ordnance as well, so defeating combatants with those grenades spawn us void elemental wells, just another way of producing those void elemental wells for us to proc Font of Might, which help in both our unforgiving and commemoration. Like I said, taking this into nightfalls, like you see here, it is an easy nightfall this week with the saber, but crushing through it super nice and easy with all of these different perks and invisibility and weakening and volatility that we can get just from getting defeats with our grenades. We proc all of that together with the invisibility and Font of Might, and we're able to do a good amount of damage on enemies with both the chest piece and Font of Might procced. It was doing about 50% more damage, so it went from about 1500 on an enemy all the way up to 2600, 2400. So it was quite a bit of damage increase just for the SMG and the LMG that we have, because they are both void, so they proc with that Phantom Might. But a very, very fun and useful build inside of Destiny for our void hunters, getting that extra damage with our Gyrfalcon's chest piece. Very nice that it's finally disabled. Definitely heard it's a menace in PvP, but it is also very, very useful in the PvE realm right here. So thank you guys so much for watching. Truly appreciate the support. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.